This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and I'm going to present today a brief webinar to help familiarize county hospital budget users with the steps required for the fiscal 21 county hospital budget, as well as try to familiarize folks with the new system, the new online system that will be used for completion of the forms in this year. So we're going to start out first with just some general budget information as a reminder for folks that are maybe new to completing the hospital budget forms or need a little bit more familiarity with the process and requirements. First of all, the Department of Management's role is that DOM provides the forms, including these web-based forms. We provide instructions, we provide technical assistance for all local government budgets that have to complete a form and submit them to us in this manner. So therefore, to access the required forms that you need to submit via Department of Management's website, and also to just familiarize yourself with maybe some different pieces of information you might find helpful as you complete your budget, you would go to the following site on the DOM's webpage. So it's dom.iowa.gov/county-hospital-boards. You can also go to the DOM just main homepage, dom.iowa.gov, look for other authorities, and find hospital boards on the drop-down there. So at this hospital board resource page, you'll find a variety of pieces of information. You'll find a budget archive, which would provide for you an opportunity to review budgets from prior years and the current year. And that would be all hospital budgets, whether they be your budget or budgets in other counties in the state. This is also where you go to actually submit the budget for the fiscal 21. It would provide you with a link to the correct website that you log into. This is where you'd also go to view public valuation reports. The property valuations will be populated into your budget forms for fiscal 20 once your county auditor files value. But if you want to view prior year valuation reports or any other additional information, you can access that information by clicking this button. You'll also find forms available, including the miscellaneous budget amendment form that we'll talk about in a moment. And from this page, you can also review prior year and current year tax rate documents. So if you'd like to see some historical information, for example, on what tax rates counties across the state have used in previous years, or compare yourself to total tax requests to other counties, that all information can be obtained by selecting one of these tax rate documents. They are found in a format that you can download to Excel. You can manipulate the data and look at it in more detail. Again, there are several years of data there, so you can access that information as you so choose. So let's talk a little bit about general budget timelines. The first step in your budget process, after obviously the county auditor files value and you have prepared your budget as you see fit, the first sort of statutory step that you would need to complete is to publish notice of a public hearing that you'll have for your public. So you publish notice of the public hearing and proposed budget summary not less than 10 days, no more than 20 days prior to the date before the hearing. You don't count the actual date. You hold your hearing for the public. After that hearing, you close out of the hearing and your board would go ahead and adopt the budget as proposed or with slight modifications downward. You then certify that budget with the county auditor by March 15th. Because the 15th falls on a Sunday this year, that would actually be March 16th. The Department of Management then compiles local government budgets, and we certify final tax rates back to the county auditor by June 15th. We also provide county auditors with consolidated tax rates by tax district for assistance in their preparation of tax statements. So the county auditor then prepares the tax rates and provides that to the county treasurer by July 1, and the county treasurer goes through the process to compile all that information and prepare tax statements for property owners. And those tax statements are for taxes due September 30th and March 30th of each year. So when we talk about the taxation opportunities available for county hospitals, there's a variety of different levies that are available. There's different general fund levies depending on if you're considered a public hospital or a revenue hospital. There's FICA and IPERS levies for the employer's share of FICA and IPERS that may be available to you if you're at your general fund limit. There's an emergency levy for a fiscal emergency that cannot be financed from the general fund, which this does require state appeal board approval, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There may be an ambulance levy available to you depending on your circumstance within your county. Debt service may be available to certain hospitals, although currently I know that there are no hospitals levying debt service. And tort liability levy for liability insurance and tort claims, as well as judgments, may be available to you as well. On this page, it does list the limitation for each of those rates, as well as the Iowa Code authorization. So if you're interested in looking more deeply into one of these different levies, then you can consult that section of the Iowa Code for more information. But we're going to talk about them more in detail as we go through the next few slides. So the first one, the major levy that you do use would be your general fund levy for your general operations. And for public type hospitals, which there are about 39 of those now, it's for improvement, maintenance, and replacement of a hospital. The rate limits are determined by population. So population under 225,000 in the county, the rate limit is 27 cents. For population at or above 225,000, which is just Polk County at this point, the rate limit is $2.05. The revenue type hospital, there are 4 of those, and their general fund levy is for operation, maintenance, and funded depreciation of a hospital, and they have a rate limit of $1.08. Memorial Hospital, currently now for fiscal 21, there is 1 Memorial Hospital, and they actually do not levy property tax. FICA and IPERS. FICA and IPERS funds may be available to you, but your general fund levy must be at the maximum. And there is no rate limit, but it is considered to be the amount necessary, and it's limited in purpose to FICA and IPERS requirements for your employees. You do not show expenditures in those FICA and IPERS funds. Basically, you would levy in the FICA and IPERS funds and then transfer to the fund with the salary expenditure. So you would levy in FICA and IPERS and then transfer to your general fund to expend out for those salaries. Emergency levy, this is for an emergency that cannot be financed through the general fund. And by emergency, we really are talking about a fiscal emergency, not a natural disaster or that type of emergency typically. This particular levy is covered under Code of Iowa 24.6. It does have a levy limit of 27 cents per thousand. It does require approval of the State Appeal Board via a special form that you must complete and file with the county auditor along with your budget. If you feel that there may be any inclination for your particular hospital to need to use this particular levy, please contact me. We'll work through providing you with that form as well as what information may also be needed. Again, this requires approval of the State Appeal Board. State Appeal Board is a 3-member board consisting of the Director of Department of Management, the Treasurer of the state, and the auditor of the state. And so the ability to use this levy would be considered and approved by that board. And then if you were able to use the levy, then you would levy for it within your budget, and then received funds would then be transferred from the emergency fund to your general to be spent. You also have an unemployment compensation levy. It's to pay for the cost of unemployment benefits, and there is no rate limit. Again, with this one, it is the amount necessary, and it is limited in purpose to only that particular cost. Ambulance levy may be an option for your hospital depending on your circumstances. The ambulance levy is for purchasing, leasing, equipping, maintaining, and operating ambulance services. This is only for when such services are not otherwise available. So that's really the key here. If you, as a county hospital, are considering this levy and you've not levied for it in the past, you would want to consult legal counsel whether or not the circumstances in your county meet the requirement that such ambulance services are not otherwise available as spelled out in statute. And the rate limit for ambulance levy is 27 cents per thousand. Tort liability and insurance levy. This is to pay the cost of tort liability judgments or insurance necessary and prudent for the operation of the hospital. As with some of these other funds, there is not a rate limit. It is the amount necessary, but it's limited in purpose to only the cost of those particular insurance costs. Debt service levy is for payment for qualified outstanding debt. The particular long-term debt schedule in the supplementary detail must be completed. Debt service does not have a rate limit. It is the amount necessary, but it's limited in purpose to servicing that particular qualified outstanding debt. Currently, no hospitals are levying for debt service. So if you are considering that this might be an option for you, I would highly suggest you consult with your bond counsel if you're considering issuing debt and having general obligation be an option for repayment. Restricted funds and board designated funds. Many hospitals set aside funds from depreciation, etc., for building and improvements. Since all funds must be accounted for and distinguish these funds from restricted funds, a board designated fund may be established, and money may be transferred from this fund to other funds by board resolution. As I mentioned, the budget deadline per statute is March 15th. In 2020, this would be observed on March 16th since the 15th is a Sunday. So after approval of your budget and local adoption, there is an opportunity for your citizens to protest your budget. Protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa Section 2427. Persons affected by the proposed budget, expenditure, or tax levy, or any item therein may appeal the budget. Essentially, they would gather signatures and file a petition and file that appeal with the county auditor of the county in which the local government is located. So they'd gather signatures, they'd file that with the county auditor. The deadline for a budget protest is March 25th, so essentially 10 days after your budget deadline of March 15th. The budget protest then, as far as how many signatures are required, is determined via a calculation of how many people voted at the last election for governor. So once the county auditor receives that information, assuming it's a viable protest per the required signatures, they would forward that protest document to the State Appeal Board. Again, the State Appeal Board is that three-member body of the Director of Department of Management, the Auditor of State, and Treasurer of State. If they received a viable protest, they would send out a hearing panel to conduct a local public hearing, whereas the hospital and the petitioners can both present their sides of the issue regarding the status of the budget. The hearing panel would gather that information, bring it back to the State Appeal Board, and the State Appeal Board would render a decision on the budget in a public meeting. Once you are in the fiscal year of a budget amendment is required for any increase in the totals for funds. So if you approved a certain amount of expenditures by fund via your budget, if you find once you're into that budget year that you need to exceed those approved expenditures, then you would need to complete a budget amendment. The amendment must be effective before any of the expenditure amounts that were adopted are exceeded. And budget amendments require the same notice and hearing procedures as required for the adoption of the original budget. Budget amendments, like budgets, are subject to protest. An amendment of a budget after May 31st, which is properly protested but without adequate time for hearing and decision on the protest by June 30th, is void. So in other words, if you need to amend your budget and you're right at the end of the fiscal year, so you need to amend it during June, we do usually suggest you go ahead and amend, but you need to be aware that if your budget amendment were protested during that month of June, there would not be time to hold a local hearing and render a decision on the protest, so therefore your budget amendment would be void. The budget amendment form is staying the same as prior years. Long term, we would like to build this amendment form into the online budget system, but for fiscal 21, the form will be the same as it has been. So basically, you go to that County Hospital Board resource page. Under Forms, you find that miscellaneous budget amendment form. It's a one-page document, and you complete that. If you have any questions regarding the amendment process or the form itself, feel free to contact me. So let's take a few moments now and review the new budget system, sort of its look and feel for what you'll be seeing for the fiscal 21 budgets. The forms themselves look very similar, but the application used to complete the forms will be new for fiscal 21. Your login access should transfer, but let me know if someone needs access that does not have it, or if you had access previously and you're just not seeing the capability to access your forms this year. Just go ahead and contact me. Once you're in the system, if you use the tab key during data entry, it will move between cells in which you can enter data. You can also use the arrow keys side to side and up and down. So if you prefer to enter, say, within your general fund, if you prefer to enter all of your actual year data by fund, you can move right down the column that you're in using the arrow key and enter all that data. As you move within a page, the cell that you were in will also be highlighted, and the row and column will show a green highlight. This is just to sort of help you keep your place as you're working in the budget system. Ending fund balances are produced by subtracting the sum of all expenditures from the sum of beginning balance and revenues. So that's just a highlight of what the form is doing for you. When you are ready to work in the system, you'd go to that DOM website, dom.iowa.gov/county-hospital-boards, and you'd select the blue button entitled Submit Budget. The first thing you're going to see is a screen that shows you the status of county filings, and this is the filing evaluation. So that way you know when you go to this page whether or not your county has filed valuations. County valuations need to be filed in order for you to input your tax asking and have a tax rate be calculated. You can certainly work in the budget system prior to your county's values being filed. You can enter your revenues, other revenues and expenditures, but their valuations will need to be filed in order for you to calculate tax rate and actually publish your budget notice. So if you are ready to go ahead and work in the system, you'd select Log In, and it would bring up this screen here that is just the regular Enterprise A&A login that you may remember from prior years. And then you'd sign in. What you're going to see is a home screen, and it will show for you the budgets that you have available to you. For most folks, it would just be the budget for the county that you're located in. You'll also see a reports option, which at this time is simply just a variety of different public reports for valuations. So if you select budgets, again, you'll see this budget screen that shows the budget to which you have access. So it provides you with a variety of pieces of information under status. Obviously, this is a new budget that we're looking at here. It's never been edited, so it would say a status new. Upon the time that you propose your budget for a public hearing, or you've adopted your budget, or your budget's been certified, the status will change as well when you look at this screen. This will also show you the last updated date for the budget. It will show you the date of your public hearing, the date of adoption, the date of certification and finalization once those actions have taken place. But anytime you want to go into your budget, whether to edit it or to review it or just to print off a copy, you would go over here under Actions and select the Edit button. Once inside the budget, you'll see tabs across the top representing the different funds and different pages that must be completed. Data entered on the Fund tabs and on that Adopted Budget Summary tab will populate on the Public Hearing Notice tab and the remainder of the Adopted Budget Summary tab. So you'd enter data on all these fund pages that are supplemental pages, and they'll carry over to some of your summary pages. So I want to give you just a brief example of what some of those fund pages look like. For most folks, obviously you're going to use the general fund page. So when you go to the general fund, you'll see two tabs, sort of sub-tabs within the general fund, a sub-tab for revenue and a sub-tab for expenditures. On each of those tabs, you would enter 3 years of data, the actual data, current year data as adopted and re-estimated if necessary, and then your budget year data. So you'd do that for revenue, and then you'd switch over to the expenditure tab for general, and you'd enter your information for expenditures. These same tabs, revenue and expenditure tabs, would be available for FICA and IPERS, etc. So you'll see them look similarly as you work your way across. Obviously, for lots of folks, you won't be using very many of these tabs. Everyone, of course, uses a general. Some folks use FICA and IPERS, maybe ambulance, but you only use those tabs as applicable to you. The other tab that you will be sure that you need to complete is the Adopted Budget Summary tab. What you will find is that a lot of the summary page is completed for you, either by pulling over information from other sheets or by simply being formula-based. So in this particular example, there is no valuation yet filed by the county, but at the time in which there is valuation, it would be populated in these two columns. The cells that you can enter into, again, are blue. Cells that are white are either calculated fields or they're pulling from another sheet. But in this page, you would enter in the blue column your tax asking by fund for each of these different fund types. And then the sheet will do the calculations for you to fill out the rest of this information. And then what the sheet also does then is, for instance, for your general fund, on the general fund revenues tab, you have lines for property taxes and utility replacement taxes. Once you complete this page and you save it, then this information will populate over onto your general fund revenues tab. Once you're in a budget, you can check errors at any time. You'll see this option up on the top right. You can save, and we do recommend that you save often, and you can also print at any time. You can print the full budget at any time, and then upon proposing your budget for publication, you can also print only the publication notice, so if you should so choose. If in Google Chrome, and we do, as I mentioned, highly recommend that you use Google Chrome as your browser, the most updated version of Google Chrome. If you use something different, you may see compromised performance. But when you're in Google Chrome and you go to print, you can select your local printer, obviously if you want to print off a hard copy, or you can do a save to PDF as your destination. So print a hard copy, as I mentioned, from a local printer, or if you choose save to PDF, you can then save that off onto your machine. As I mentioned before, valuations are populated for you within your budget once the 2019 valuations are filed by your county auditor. And those will be populated, and once you enter your tax request, then your tax rate and other items will be calculated for you. Until valuations are filed, or if the county auditor has filed valuations and then unfiled them to make a correction, you will see the following notice on the top of your budget forms. And this is just to let you know that your data may change because valuations are in unfiled status. If you have questions, you see this notification, you have questions, please contact your county auditor with those questions. As I mentioned before, you're going to enter revenue and expense detail on the supplemental detail sheets, those different fund tabs, and that data will pull forward, automatically total, and will be brought forward to the adopted summary and hearing tabs. Before you can publish your budget, you do need to, of course, check your errors, and you cannot publish your budget if you are showing any errors within the system. You can if you have warnings. Warnings will show in yellow, but errors will show in a sort of a pink color, and that will prevent you from publishing your budget. When you are error-free, you can propose and publish your budget to obtain the budget hearing notice that you need to publish in your paper. And if you're error-free, you'll see a notification like this. If you're error-free, you can then select the Propose Publish button, and then the next step will be a screen to enter the date, time, and place for your hearing notice for that budget hearing. Note that when you enter your date for the hearing notice period, the system's kind of trying to help you out. It won't let you enter a date that's closer than 10 days from the current date, because obviously you have to give at least 10 days notice prior to the date of your hearing. Bear in mind too, though, most newspapers require additional lead time to publish notices. So in most cases, it's going to be further than 10 days out that you're actually putting that date of the hearing in. So you enter your date, time, and place, and you select Propose. The system will then generate a notice that you can print, or you can save off to your system as a PDF. You can also access that public hearing notice at any time after proposing just by going to print at the top right, as I mentioned before. Following the public hearing, the board can make any allowable revisions, which essentially would just be decreasing the tax asking or decreasing expenditures. So if they have their public hearing and they want to make revisions downward, they can do that. You would get back in the budget and essentially return to draft, which basically opens up the budget for edits, and you'd make those changes downward. The budget is again proposed and published, although unless for some reason you had to republish, in most cases, if you're reducing your asking or your expenditures, you don't have to republish. So you would leave the original publication date in there, and then you'd be ready to adopt. So if no revisions are needed, or you've made the needed revisions downward, you just click Adopt to proceed with the budget as currently presented. You enter your adoption date in the box, and then you'd click Adopt. Upon adoption in the system of the budget, you want to file the following documents with the county auditor. You're going to give them the proof of publication for your regular budget notice, and also a signed adopted budget and all the supplementary pages. They need a copy of all those as well. And you want to deliver that to the county auditor by March 15th in a normal year, and of course March 16th this year, since the 15th is Sunday. If you have any questions regarding the budget adoption process or the forms themselves or anything of that nature, feel free to contact me. My number is 515-281-5598, or you can also contact me by email as well. Thank you.